Saving for your future is fantastic, and I always encourage it. Today, we're going to be talking about when it's the right time to hit the brakes on your contributions. I'll guide you through a real life retirement scenario to illustrate just how powerful it can be when done correctly. Hey, everybody, I'm Simon Alexander, founder of Streamlined Financial Planning, and I help people secure their desired retirement lifestyle without the fear of running out of money. Much is said about people not saving enough for retirement, and that's a valid concern. Yet, what often goes unnoticed is that some people are overly ready for retirement. Now, being well prepared is generally a positive thing, but if it comes at the expense of your current lifestyle, that's where we might need to reconsider. So today, I'll walk you through an example to highlight the impact of understanding the right duration for saving and when it makes sense to hit the brakes on your retirement contributions. But before we get into this video, I would like to make it clear that this video is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice or recommendations. So please take the time to read the following risk warnings. They will also be popping up throughout the video, and in addition, I've also included them in the description below. But really, in summary, if you're unsure before making a decision around your financial situation, I strongly encourage you to seek professional advice from a qualified independent financial advisor. So let's dive into the real life example and cash flow forecast. Allow me to introduce you to a couple, John and Jane Doe. I have altered their names and figures of their pensions and other investments slightly for confidentiality. But when John and Jane sought my guidance for retirement planning, what caught my attention was their disciplined financial habits. They were really the ideal couple. They were dedicated savers, leading a modest lifestyle and making smart investments with a substantial portion of their income. Essentially, they were ticking all the boxes when it comes to building wealth for retirement. However, there was one aspect of their planning that raised some concerns, and this is something I'll address a bit later on in the video. So first of all, John is age 60 and Jane is age 58. When they came to me, this is how the investments looked. A joint bank account with £75,000. They both had stocks and shares ISAs. John's value was 225k and Jane had a value of 265k. They both had defined contribution pensions. John had the much larger pension of £700,000 and Jane had about £125,000 in her pension. With regards to their home, it was valued at about £500,000, but they had no mortgage. So their net total assets was just under £1.9 million. John was still working and contributing into his workplace pension, this being a 5% employee with a 5% employer match. Also, they are maximizing the ISA allowance each year by contributing £20,000 each. In fact, they are saving and investing the majority of their income with little left over at the end of each month to do the things they really want to do, such as spend time with family and go traveling. Again, this is something we'll address a bit later on. So after discussing their financial situation, our next focus was on their retirement goals. We discussed what is the purpose and the meaning of the investments they had accumulated and what really matters most to them. John was dedicated to his job and was earning in the region of £160,000 a year. Despite its occasional stress and long hours, he wasn't really looking to retire early. His target retirement age was set at 67, aligning with the start of the state pension. On the other hand, Jane, a former lawyer, who chose to stay at home after the arrival of their two children, who are both now financially independent. In summary, the goal was to retire when John turned 67, but to also try and enjoy life along the way. And as their children are financially set, they are not too concerned about leaving them anything at the end of their lives. We went through an expenditure exercise and itemized and broke down what they would like to spend in retirement, and we came up with a figure of £4,000 per month, or £48,000 a year, which is currently in the region what they are spending now. This is their essential expenditure. They would also like to spend an additional £10,000 per year on holidays from age 67 to age 77, a 10-year period. We're going to call this their retirement lifestyle expenditure. Now, another expenditure that we factor in is long-term care. We are making some big assumptions here, but we want to say that both John and Jane will enter long-term care during the last 5 years of their life. More specifically, residential care of £3,904 per month each from age 90 to 93, and nursing care of £5,291 per month each from age 94 to 95. These are today's figures and will be adjusted with inflation. You may be thinking, where do I get these figures from? Well, I used an online calculator on the Paying for Care website, and I've added the link below. When going through the facts and figures with John and Jane, they made a one-off comment saying, we would love to spend more time with our children and grandchildren. However, they explained that they feel that they don't have enough money more time to do it. Again, this is something I'll address a bit later on. We have spoken about John's income, which is £160,000 per year. But what about other sources of income? Well, in the future, they're both entitled to the state pension income, which is a guaranteed inflation-linked income that starts from age 67. For the purpose of this case study, John and Jane have both contributed a maximum 35 years of national insurance contributions and are entitled to the full state pension, which is currently £203.85 per week, or just over $10,600 per year. But as you can see, this starts to get paid from 67 and is adjusted each year with inflation. So what we're going to do now for John and Jane is project out. We're going to determine if they are on track to reach their goals and retire at the age of 67, while spending what they want to spend on essential costs, plus travel, and even factoring in the high costs of long-term care at the end of their lives. But in order to project out, we need to determine how long John and Jane will live for and how long the pensions and other investments have to last for. As medicine and technology are improving, life expectancies are increasing. Based on the ONS life expectancy calculator, a 60-year-old male has an average life expectancy of 84 and a 1 in 4 chance of reaching age 92. A 50-year-old female has an age 87 average life expectancy and a 1 in 4 chance of reaching 94. To be conservative and keep it a round number, we have assumed John and Jane will live to age 95. We would much rather plan for a little bit longer life expectancy, especially if you're in average or above average health. And you may be wondering what growth rate we are using. Well, it's been assumed that the expected rate of return is 5.44%. The expected rate of return is calculated as the weighted average of the estimated returns of each asset class in a given portfolio. This return of 5.44% is gross and is before normal costs associated with investing such as tax, fund management, advisor, and custody costs. It's important to note that there's no guarantee that the expected rate of return and the actual rate of return will be the same. Streamlined financial planning offers no opinion on future returns. Rather, for the purposes of these cash flow forecasts, we use a range of estimated returns for each asset class from different sources and select a value at the conservative end to use as our expected rate of return. Following that, you may be wondering what inflation and the costs of the underlying investments are. Well, I've used an inflation rate of 2.2% and the costs of the investment portfolios, being the pensions and ISAs, is 1.35% per year. So if they kept doing what they're doing and contributed into their investments for another 7 years, here are some of the key retirement outcomes. Their retirement score is 133%. This indicates a very healthy position for John and Jane. In fact, it indicates that they can very likely fund each year of their retirement and have surplus wealth at the end of their lifetime. This chart demonstrates it well. The chart is called the available investment chart, and it shows the available liquid investments that John and Jane have over the projected timeline. On the x-axis, we can see that it starts at the beginning of the plan, which is today, and ends in 2061 when Jane is age 95. The y-axis illustrates the value of their combined liquid investments, such as their cash, pensions, and ISAs. It does exclude the non-liquid assets like property. During retirement, the line indicates that the withdrawals from the portfolio are sustainable. The investment returns are sufficient to keep growing the retirement portfolio and for John and Jane to continue making the withdrawals to fund their retirement. In fact, the graph keeps increasing during their retirement, indicating they are accumulating wealth each year until they reach long-term care at age 90, high costs of residential care and nursing care start. Another way to look at this is their retirement cushion, which is 7 years. This is the number of years that any remaining investments will last past the set life expectancy. Also note that this assumes that the annual growth rate of 5.44% per year. So every year they get the same return. And as you probably know, this will never happen in real life. Investment returns can vary from year to year, and something we'll address a bit later on. So what do they have at the point of retirement? Well, based on the assumptions, they will have a future value of just over £2.1 million in liquid investments, such as in their cash savings, pensions, and ISAs. This is really step one, as we need to identify how much the future portfolio will be at retirement in order to fund their retirement lifestyle. But what else this chart does illustrate is that when they do retire at age 67 and start drawing on their investments to fund their retirement, they require an estimated withdrawal rate of around 2.8% per year. And this reduces further when Jane's pension starts 2 years later. This means they don't require a huge amount from their portfolio each year. And you may say that these annual income withdrawals from their pensions and ISAs are sustainable. It's important to note that in this case, we have assumed that John and Jane will access their pensions flexibly in retirement. This means they access their pensions when they need the income. I put up the specific risk warnings again, so please do read them. I want to show you another chart that may demonstrate this better. Here's a detailed income projection chart. So this chart illustrates the income sources over the projected timeline. So each bar chart represents 1 year and is split up into the different sources of income. For example, we have the earned income, which is the salary. Then we've got the ISAs, the pensions, as well as the state pension. John's state pension starts at the point of retirement, age 67, and 2 years later, Jane's state pension also starts. What does this mean? Well, it means that they are in receipt of guaranteed inflation-linked income. And this means that they don't rely entirely on their investment portfolio to fund their retirement costs. We can see that towards the end of the projected timeline, that the bar charts are higher, indicating that they will require more from their portfolio to fund the expenses of long-term care. Now, as I said earlier, we are using an expected return rate of 5.44% per year. The projections have taken this into account and have assumed that John and Jane will receive this return rate every single year. But that's unrealistic. We know that we would never receive a guaranteed return each year. So what I'm going to do is run a volatility analysis. This is an assessment of how sensitive the plan may be to return rates varying over time. The plan is run through 1,000 market simulations with return rates varied each year. Each bar represents 1 year and illustrates the chance of success John and Jane having enough money to cover expenditure in that particular year. And what we can see is that John and Jane have a really good chance of success and therefore not running out of money in retirement. Another way to view this is the likelihood of John and Jane having to make adjustments in retirement, such as taking more risk, going back to work, or reducing their expenditure, for example. But based on the analysis and their current situation, they will be absolutely fine. Lastly, I want to test their plan against certain what-if scenarios. These are additional stress test scenarios that help us to see how their retirement goal will be affected in various situations. The first what-if scenario I want to look at is the market crash. So the market crash simulates a general market downturn of 50% and a subsequent 4-year recovery. I have timed this market crash to happen a year into retirement, and what we can see is that John and Jane will have enough investments during retirement. In fact, it may not be detrimental to their retirement plans if a market crash had to happen then. The second what-if scenario is high inflation. Now, we have assumed an inflation rate of 2.2% during the projected timeline. This scenario assumes an increase of the annual inflation rate from 2.2% to 3%. Again, the cash flow forecasts illustrate sufficient liquid assets over the course of their life. It's absolutely important to mention that these aren't the only what-if scenarios. In my client interactions, I delve into more intricate details, considering factors like lower investment returns, increased longevity, and the potential impact on the surviving spouse in the unfortunate event of an early passing. So after viewing their current situation, you should ask the question, is their plan sustainable? Can they afford a retirement lifestyle of £4,000 per month, £48,000 per year, and spend an additional £10,000 per year on holidays for the first 10 years? The answer is yes. In fact, they have surplus wealth at the end of their lifetime. However, you may consider them to be too prepared, as they have accumulated more than enough. They're not particularly enjoying life now, as they are saving the majority of their income, and they really are just counting down the days to retirement in 7 years' time. Going back to what they value, which is spending time with their family now, so we discussed this following strategy. Work is now optional for John. He enjoys working, but he can do without the long hours and commute every day. For that reason, he is going to semi-retire in 2 years' time. His current employer will allow him to reduce his hours, and therefore at age 62, he'll drop down his working days from 5 to 3 days. This means that in 2 years' time, his salary will reduce from 160,000 to 90,000. He will continue working until the age of 67. There are many positives to this strategy. First of all, John continues to work. It is something he enjoys, and by semi-retiring and reducing his hours, he can take a more of a phased approach to retirement. He will also continue to benefit from further workplace pension contributions. In addition, John and Jane will stop their ISA contributions in 2 years' time, freeing up surplus income to go traveling and spend time with family. Now, you may be wondering that they could be doing other things to improve their situation, which we did do as part of the financial planning exercise, such as lowering the cost of their portfolio and recommending more suitable funds aligned to the risk profile, for example. But for the purpose of this video, I've kept it simple to illustrate my point of identifying when you have enough for retirement and to start enjoying life now. So I've integrated this strategy into our cash flow system, and then when I press the button, the line chart will show a comparison to the current plan. This helps us see how it will affect their current finances. You can see that by John semi-retiring, they will still have wealth at the end of their time and don't experience any shortfall. It does not put their overall retirement plans in jeopardy, and in fact, they still have a retirement cushion, so some liquid assets at the end of their projected timeline. You can say that this is getting the best of both worlds. They have freed up some of their time to spend with their children, and John continues to work part-time and earning a salary. Going back to the volatility analysis, and as we previously discussed, this is an assessment of how sensitive the plan may be to return rates varying over time. So this chart illustrates that they will still have a high chance of not running out of money during retirement. We can see that by them making the proposed changes, they will still have significant wealth, and the chances of them running out of money during retirement are low. The bottom graph identifies the range in the size of the impacts to the retirement goal progress and their net estate. We can see that the middle result is 109%, which is a very good outcome. It essentially means that the probability of John and Jane having to make big regular adjustments in retirement, such as reducing their expenditure, going back to work, or taking more investment risks, are very low. This should give them peace of mind that they'll be okay. John and Jane's story is a great example of how to build wealth for the future. One of the key takeaways from their experience is to start saving early. This is because of the compounding effect of investment returns over the long term. By investing early, you can benefit from the power of compounding, which can really help you build wealth over time. Another important lesson from John and Jane's story is the importance of discipline. Being disciplined with your finances can help you stay on track and achieve your retirement goals. More importantly, the big lesson is to identify how much you need to have to live the life you want in retirement, but to also enjoy life now. Finally, and as always, I encourage you to think about these 4 questions. How much do I need to save up for retirement? How long will my money last? How do I pay less in taxes? If something happens to me, will my family be okay? Once again, I'm Simon Alexander, founder of Streamline Financial Planning. And if you have any questions about your retirement, be sure to get in contact or visit us at streamlinefb.co.uk. Thanks for watching.